Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Safety Systems. If you're looking to add or upgrade a security system at your home or office, turn to the local leaders. You want local installation, local maintenance. Safety Systems offers the best contracts of anyone in the field as well. Call VFL JJ Surlis this week and check out everything they offer there at Safety Systems. Okay. A couple of weeks ago, Jeremy Pruitt marched with his players and spoke at a social justice rally in downtown Knoxville. Since then, he has put his team front and center in terms of some of the cultural change that is going on in this country. Let me go ahead and show you what just came out this week. UT has created a culture committee on their football team. It's led by T. Martin. They didn't force anyone into it. They let the players decide who wanted to be involved. It's pretty much everybody. UT is working with football players to get them registered to vote. Thought that was interesting that Jeremy Pruitt said they're doing that. UT is going to wear and then sell or auction black jerseys. Looks like the Kentucky game is the idea, with the money then going to a cause or charity. Initially it was said Black Lives Matter, but then it's been changed to charity. We'll talk about that in a second. David, as an African American, what are your thoughts on these steps being taken by UT and Jeremy Pruitt?
Well, I think, as a coach, you have to say, am I going to listen to these things and believe that the things that have affected my players and their families are real and want to help be an agent of change? Or do I want to just sort of, well, we're just going to talk about football in the building. We're just going to do that. Or, what is the most sort of milquetoast statement that I can put out where I don't risk upsetting donors who think this is a lot of noise for nothing, but also make my players feel like I'm in their camp. And I think Jeremy Pruitt, he's gone pretty all in with his players. I think when you're at a rally for like racial injustice and police brutality and you take the bullhorn and are talking, you're putting yourself at the front of this and making yourself. I mean, Jeremy Pruitt is, for better or worse, next to maybe Phil Fulmer, probably the most famous person in the state, and he's used his voice and his platform for that. And so, you've seen a lot of reactions, and a lot of coaches handle this in a different way. I think Jeremy Pruitt has taken a posture of understanding and saying, I didn't see a lot of this stuff. I didn't notice a lot of this stuff. And he watched, videos of Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, and reading about her death and seeing the video of George Floyd and saying, okay, I see these things now. What else am I not seeing? And asking his players and talking to them. And the answer is a whole lot. I mean, the day after they got back from back on campus, they had a 90-minute team meeting of just talking about players' experiences with racism and all these things. And, there's a reason why you can't find a black person who's never experienced some sort of racism. It's because it's pretty prevalent. It looks a lot different than it did in the 60s and the 1960s and the 1860s, but it's still very much alive and well.
It is a risky position. Shouldn't be, but it is, based on where Jeremy Pruitt is. If he was the head coach at Cal Berkeley, this isn't as much of a stand that he's taking by speaking at a rally like that. Jimmy, the fact that Jeremy Pruitt told a group of reporters that the donations would go to Black Lives Matter. Then the next day, T. Martin said, no, we don't know where it's going. It could go to local charities. I heard the Boys and Girls Club mentioned, local causes. Your thoughts on why the change from Black Lives Matter? Do you play the cynic here? Was that because there was blowback because Black Lives Matter is seen as political, or do you think that was just Pruitt misspoke?
I think it's more that Pruitt misspoke. I think that he sees Black Lives Matter as a movement to help the black community. And when we interviewed T. Martin Friday, he said that it will be donated to help with the black community. So I think that's when and T. Martin also said, I said, when that decision made? He said, well, it was made that morning before we interviewed, before the Zoom conference call with Jeremy Pruitt. So I think that's the case. And T also said on that the culture committee, he said there are 11 members on the committee. They have black and white on the committee. They've reached out. They've had the difficult discussions about race relations and racial situations on that. But I don't have any problem with it. I know some people were a little bit down on the idea of raising money and it going to whether it's Black Lives Matter or the black community, but I have no issue with that. I think that's a good idea, actually.
I do too. I don't have a problem with it, but they're going to be, again, Jeremy Pruitt is kind of putting his money where his mouth is, because he is in a red state. And there's already been some amount of blowback. It hasn't been huge that we've seen, a little on Twitter, a little on the message boards. David, let me ask you this one. Let's continue to play cynic here because I've heard this. Well, he has to do this. He has to do this for recruiting. Where do you stand on that? Is he just going along, or do you think no? This is real?
Time will tell. You don't know. Are there coaches who are definitely doing that? Yeah, there are. You can see them. I think
Mike Gundy's backtracked this week. I was disgusted when I found out what they said about that. Oh, really?
I think you can tell. I mean, I don't want to be the guy that's parsing every coach's statement, but if a coach is talking about this and they're not talking about the issues of police brutality and systemic equality and systemic racism, they're saying, I hate injustice. Racism is terrible, y'all. Like, okay, but like, what are we really talking about here? We're talking about actual issues that are, I think you can really tell in the way that the language that a coach uses. And when Jeremy Pruitt is talking about, situations of police killings of black citizens of America and saying, like, I'm realizing, like, I had a blind spot to this. I try to be a good teammate. I try to listen to people, and I was not aware of this stuff. I need to listen. And then he actively listens to his players and sits down and actually tries to engage in that. I think that there's something to be said for that. But, again, what does this look like in 6 months? What does this look like in 2 years? Can you continue to use that? Can you make that a part of your program permanently? And that is where the proof is. Nobody can say or do anything right now that makes me say, oh, they're definitely not doing that for recruiting. It's sort of like, is this going to be part of your message and the way that you operate your program moving forward for Jeremy Pruitt and every coach in college football?
I kind of differ a little bit on the language part.
Mm-hmm.
These are football coaches, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So my deal is not the language, it's the actions.
Mm-hmm.
What actions are you taking? So I wouldn't pick apart the words they're using. I would say, what are you doing?
Yeah, I think it's too early, though. That's the thing. I think right now all you have are kind of statements, and then what are coaches actually doing and thinking about that. I think you'll see the actions over time, and the ones that don't, it's going to be pretty clear.
I would only disagree with you on this front, and that is, at this point, he seems to be doing more than anybody else I'm seeing in terms of college football coaches. I've seen a lot of statements come out. I've seen a lot of tweets with the coach's signature under it. UT put out a thing that was just a blanket statement for everybody. He seems to be making some moves. You're right. Proof's in the pudding. We'll see how long this goes. But in terms of, I made a statement, then I took a bullhorn and made a statement, and now I'm taking action 1, 2, 3 in a week. Okay, maybe is this a 1 week surge, or is this a long haul thing? Commitment. We'll see. But I'll give him a little more credit for, and we all got different viewpoints. I wanted you here today because I didn't want this to be the old white man discussion. Old white man, I said, not all white man. But I do think that he's putting a little more action to it than I anticipated. I thought it would be the statement, and that's it. I'm seeing some other stuff here. We'll see where it goes.
I think the one thing I would say is that for a lot of, if you're a white football coach, these things don't affect you. You have a choice. Do I care about this? If you're a black person in America, these things do affect you. You don't have a choice. These things will happen to you and affect you and impact your life. And so the question is, do you care? And you have to answer that with actions, and we're going to see who cares in the years to come.
Well, and I'll just say this. We've had people on this show who have been late to the show because they were pulled over on their way to the show. And when told why, when they asked, why am I pulled over? Well, we had a description of a suspect. Black male. That was it. Black male. And the guy was late for our show because he was pulled over because he was a black male. Not age, not height, not weight, just that. So it does impact people. I don't get pulled over because I'm a white male. Be ugly white male that's 40-something years old. That could be it. But it's not just pull over the white guy. So that kind of stuff does impact players a little more than it does white players. And that's something I was amazed when the person on the show told me that. And he was like, it happens all the time. So we are learning, I think. But David, thanks for being here and sharing your opinion on all this stuff.
Appreciate it.
We'll see you back on the show at a later date. Up next, what are we doing? Oh, we're going to continue this conversation with Ryan and Mike from this cynical point of view, how much do they buy into this stuff that's going on? Come on back.